Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Late Saturday morning, some massive news for this Nebraska program coming out of the transfer portal. Former Georgia Southern linebacker Marques Watson-Trent committing to Nebraska. Not only do I think you're getting a really good football player here, but I think this makes so much sense in terms of roster management as well. Where you look at this Nebraska linebacker room, I think it's damn talented. You talk about Vincent Shavers. I don't think he's just a good linebacker. I think he might be great for Nebraska over the next couple of years, but he's young. You have a true freshman, Christian Jones, coming in, another guy that I think can be really dang good for Nebraska. It's a talented linebacker room, but it's not incredibly deep. But I think more importantly, it's young. You know, when you lose guys like John Bullock and Javin Wright, Mekhi Bayer, guys that have played a lot of football for Nebraska over the last couple of years, you wanted to bring in a linebacker that's played a lot of football and has had a lot of production. That's what Marques Watson-Trent is. I mean, you talk about if we're just simplifying the sport of football for just a second and say, what do we want from our off-ball linebackers? We want an off-ball linebacker that can find the ball carrier and successfully tackle the ball carrier. That's what Marques Watson-Trent does. I mean, over the last 3 seasons, over 360 tackles, 27 of which were for a loss, 6 sacks. And with those 360 tackles that he's made over the last 3 years, he only has a 12% missed tackle rate, which is incredibly low. This is a guy that sifts through the traffic. He finds the ball carrier. He brings the ball carrier to the ground. So not only do I think you're getting a starting caliber linebacker that I think can be really good for Nebraska, but I think just as importantly, you're injecting a linebacker that is one of the smarter linebackers that you're going to see in the country, has played a ton of football, can be right beside a guy like Vincent Shavers and really elevate Vincent Shavers' game as well. Really good football player at a position Nebraska wanted to address. And this is the exact kind of guy that I think Nebraska wanted to bring in. Want to get into a little bit more about Marques Watson-Trent, talk about what Nebraska has done in the portal, really talk about this linebacker room that I think has a chance to be really good next year. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Nebraska fans. It's been a busy last couple of weeks, right? Some coaching staff changes, a lot of additions in the portal. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas has been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And I think we're going to do a film eval of Marques Watson-Trent because when I watch this kid, he excites me in a big time way. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Without further ado, let's get into it. Again, with Marques Watson-Trent, it starts with he was a safety coming out of high school, had to put on a little bit of a weight his first 2 years at Georgia Southern. He puts on that weight, moves down to linebacker, and he's been phenomenal the last 3 years. And again, it starts with all the production. This is a guy that we don't talk about it enough. When we talk about linebackers, a lot of times we like to talk about the physical traits. At that linebacker position, yeah, physical traits are important, just like it is for every other position on the football field. But at linebacker, especially having the instincts and having what's right between the ears is just as important. And Marques Watson-Trent, you're not going to find many smarter linebackers across the country. And this is a guy that is quick to diagnose what's going on. He's very, very disciplined and good in his run fits. And when he has the opportunity to bring ball carriers to the ground, he doesn't really miss them. What he kind of reminds me of, I'm not sure if he's as gifted as this guy, but Nakobe Dean from Georgia, like a little bit of a shorter linebacker that certainly doesn't have that NFL length, but more than makes up for it with the speed sideline to sideline and the instincts. That's kind of what I see when I watch a guy like Marques Watson-Trent. And so you get into what this linebacker room to me is going to look like in 2025, excuse me. Look, it was a concern 4 weeks ago when you had guys like Mekhi Bayer and obviously John Bullock and Javin Wright are up with their eligibility. You had Vincent Shavers, and that was really the only linebacker on your roster that you had a ton of confidence in heading into the 2025 year. You're bringing a guy like Deshaun McCullough, who's, to me, kind of the complete opposite of a Marques Watson-Trent. Deshaun McCullough's special in terms of what he can be. And if he settles into that off-ball linebacker role, at 6'5", 230, the length that he has, the long speed that he has, the ability to rush the passer that he has, that's a really traitsy linebacker that you haven't necessarily seen it click because he's been playing all sorts of different positions during his career. He started out at Indiana as an edge rusher, then moved to nickel at Oklahoma, kind of finally settled in at linebacker in the 2024 year. If you hit with the Sam McCullough, you're getting a special linebacker. You supplement that with, hey, let's go land a guy in Marques Watson-Trent who we know is a hit. Like, I don't see Marques Watson-Trent being a bad football player for Nebraska in 2025. And you couple that with a guy like Vincent Shavers, who I think is special, with a guy like Christian Jones, who I think can be very good at some point during his Nebraska career. All of a sudden, you're sitting here and looking at the linebacker room and say, yeah, we feel pretty dang good about where the off-ball linebacker position is for Nebraska heading into 2025, where a couple of weeks ago, they had some massive question marks about that position. That's how you want to use the transfer portal, and that's largely how Matt Rhule has decided to use it. You know, there's a lot of positions on this Nebraska team that you feel good about. I think they wanted to address certain spots. I think off-ball linebacker being one. I think wide receiver being one. They've done that. You know, Matt Rhule to me is managing this roster the right way. We're going to build the bulk of our team out of the high school recruiting trail, get these guys developed up into the program, but we're going to go to the transfer portal, and we're not just going to get any type of player. We're going to take a hard, close look at our roster and say, where are the cracks? You know, where do we immediately need to get better at heading into 2025 to take that next step? I think number one was pass catcher, Dane Key. A guy like Hardly Gilmore, who we didn't talk about because he committed during one of the college football playoff games, really talented kid. And we all know Dane Key, one of the best pure wide receivers that we saw in the portal. You also bring in a guy like Nazea Hunter. It's a massively upgraded position around Dylan Rhule. Then you look at the linebacker spot, you know, losing guys like Bayor and Wright and Bullock. You say, we needed some bodies. You go out and bring in Sam McCullough and Marques Watson-Trent. I like how Nebraska's managing the portal. I think Marques Watson-Trent is a very, very good football player that, again, he's really smart. I think he's probably going to wear the green dot in this defense, which matters. Having that linebacker that is kind of the field general, the linebacker that's played a lot and knows what he's doing, especially when you're kind of ushering in a new kind of defense with Coach Butler coming in, that's going to matter, especially when you have a lot of young linebackers around him, like a guy like Christian Jones or Vincent Shavers. Really good football player, a player that I think brings more than just one play. He kind of elevates the room in terms of how smart he is as well. Makes a lot of sense for Nebraska. We'll get out of here on that. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.